Oh, I'm so heartbroken. I just spent off and on all day because I was babysitting. So I just took whatever time I had today to work on the vlog for this week. And I've had this happen before where the program stops working and then you can like reboot it and everything's fine. Well, this time I lost the vlog. So yeah, this is Monday, what is it? May 9th. For some reason I was thinking September. I did do some reading yesterday, but I did not film anything. So this is, technically week 2, and I will be posting that vlog, but it will obviously be later than I intended because usually when something like that happens, it's better for me just to let it go and then like regroup and start on a different day, or I'll get frustrated and yeah, it's not worth that. So tomorrow I'll start over and I'll probably get it posted like Wednesday, which by the time this video gets posted, it will be up. So yeah, but that will explain why it was later than I said. Yesterday I finished Inertia in this book, The End and Other Beginnings. This is by Veronica Roth, and it is a collection of sci-fi stories. And let me tell you, by far, I think this was my favorite short story that I've read so far this month. So I did talk a little bit about it in the last vlog, and I hadn't finished it yet. I got tired and decided that I needed to just go to sleep. And so I finished it last night, and it was such a good story. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give any of it away. If you want to read it, you definitely you don't want to be spoiled for it. But I will say what I appreciated most about this story. The main character has depression, and her friend is trying to talk her into medication and that it's okay to take medication and all of that. I have struggled with depression probably for years, but really noticing it right after I had my son 2 years ago. And I struggled with the same thing. Like, I don't want to be on medication because, it'll change me and all of that. And it was really hard, and I suffered for a lot longer than I should have because I was afraid. And so I loved that this story dove into that, and then also just kind of talked about how the medication really did help her in the end, and it didn't change her. And I love that because this is a young adult book, and while I'm not a young adult, I know a lot of teenagers that struggle with depression, and I think having a story like this to kind of help explain it a little bit and maybe make it seem like it's okay to take medication if you need it. I appreciated that. So that one, by far, my favorite, not just for that, but for other reasons. It was such a good story. Tonight, I'm going to read, which one? I had to look up the name because I didn't remember what it was called, but it is called Peasant Mary, and I am going to read this for the prompt name in the title, I think. So I'm going to read it for the prompt name in the title. Now, if you watched my other vlog, you will notice that this is a different bingo card because my children lost my other one. So I don't have 2 colors like I did, I just have the one, but I decided I would print another one out and start over because, kids. But anyway, I will let you know what I think about The Peasant Mary. It is by Dostoevsky, And I probably won't update until tomorrow, but I'm gonna read it, and yeah, I'll get back with you. Hello, it is now Thursday night, and again, Tuesday and Wednesday, I guess they're just not good reading slash vlogging days. They're kind of busy, but that's okay. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the story that I read Monday evening. It was The Peasant Mary. Now, this story starts out talking about, so it's Dostoevsky talking about his time in prison in Siberia. And so he is talking about how terrible these prisoners are, and I have to research why he was in prison. I know it was for 4 years in Siberia. I'm not exactly sure why, but I am interested, so I'm sure I will do some sort of research on that to figure out the answer. But in the midst of the holidays for the prisoners, they essentially got like 2 days of freedom to drink and just do all kinds of craziness. And in the midst of that craziness, he's walking through and seeing people get beat up and all kinds of debauchery and just things that he has a hard time with. And he goes to his room and he pretends like he's asleep so that he won't be bothered. And while he's doing that, he remembers something that he hadn't before, and it was this memory about when he was 9 years old and how he thought there was a wolf in the area. He thought he heard somebody say there was a wolf, and he ran to one of his father's servants who he knew but never had talked to before. And the servant, instead of, casting him out or anything like that, he showed him so much compassion in that fear that he was surprised by it. And so the story is basically him coming to grips with the fact that even though the people in the prison he's in have done things that he doesn't agree with, they might not be such terrible people. They might have a good side to them. And so that's what that one was about. And I'd say I liked it enough to give it like 4 stars. Like I said, I've really enjoyed all of Dostoevsky's writing. But yeah. So tonight, I think I'm going to listen to The Yellow Wallpaper. I'm not sure if I'll have a chance to talk about it tonight. I'll probably just wait till tomorrow, because that seems to be the easiest thing for me, is to read a story and then talk about it the next day. I don't know why. It's working for me, so I might as well stick with it. But if I have time, I might also do the essay by the same author, and it is Why She Wrote The Yellow Wallpaper, and so I'm interested in that. If you don't know what The Yellow Wallpaper is, it is a story that was written in the 1800s It is about a woman who has depression, and back then, instead of trying to treat depression, they would essentially just isolate the person, and obviously that's not going to make them feel better. And this particular woman is put into a room that has yellow wallpaper, and it ends up driving her crazy. So I'm really interested because I have struggled with depression, and I have struggled with finding a treatment for depression. And so it'll be interesting to kind of see the beginnings of learning about depression and how to treat it. This story actually got the attention of a lot of doctors, and they realized that they were treating depression in the wrong way. And so it was kind of like a groundbreaking story that opened a lot of eyes and helped the mental health field treat things a little differently. So I'm interested in it, and I will let you know how I feel probably tomorrow, because that's how I do things. Hello, it is, what day is it? Friday. It's Friday, and I am headed to pick up a prescription, so I thought while I'm driving I would talk about the yellow wallpaper and the essay, or I don't know if it's really an essay. It probably doesn't count, but I'm going to count it anyway. It's by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, and it is the explanation as to why she wrote the yellow wallpaper. So, let's see. The yellow wallpaper. This story was so good. It was so well written. It wasn't exactly what I thought it was. I thought, and I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give too much away. I thought that the lady in the yellow wallpaper was locked into the room with the yellow wallpaper. But she actually wasn't. But she was isolated from friends, family, and creativity. And that is what drove her crazy, is not having the support or the socialization or anything like that with society. And so I listened to this one, and I'll put the name of the narrator up here. I listened to it on Scribd, and the lady that narrated it did so good. She has this beautiful southern accent, and she just did a great job. And so if you haven't read it yet, I suggest listening to it because it was very good. So you start out the story, and the woman in the story is staying at a home that I think they're essentially staying there because their house is being renovated, and so they need a place to stay, and so they stay in this place. And when she first gets there, she tells her husband, who's a doctor, and her brother is also a doctor. She tells her husband that she really hates the wallpaper in the room that they chose to sleep in, and she would rather sleep in another room. And he says, oh, he's already dealing with her. She has a nervous, I can't remember what they call it, but essentially it's depression. This was written in the 1800s, so it has a different name, but she has that condition, and he's trying to give her rest and help her through it, and he's very loving and kind. He's not abusive in any way, but he feels like it would be better for her to just live with the wallpaper because it bothers her. And he's trying to get her to like break out of this nervous situation she's in. Basically, the idea is that with rest and abstaining from creativity and things like that, eventually she'll feel better. And so it progresses through. I don't want to say too much because you really have to read it. It's such a good story. But the wallpaper is yellow and it is a weird pattern, weird color. It smells. It gets all over their clothes. And it just kind of becomes a part of her brain. And she starts seeing things in the wallpaper. And eventually she falls off the recovery wagon and ends up being like certifiably crazy. So good. You have to read it. Even though I knew where it was going, it still was such a good story. So I read that one last night, or I listened to it. Then I read the article by the author of the story as to why she wrote it. Now, this was pretty short. I don't know if I can consider it an essay, but I'm going to mark it as an essay for this readathon because really you can do what you want. You know, we don't have to be perfect or anything like that. So that's what I'm going to count as my essay. She wrote this because, okay, so she wrote the story in 1891, I believe, and in 1887, she was having problems with depression, and she ended up going to a doctor, and the doctor said, well, here's what you need to do. You need to rest, and you need to never in your life write, read, or paint again. And so her and her family tried this form of treatment, and she said she just about went crazy. Now, she clarifies she did not have any hallucinations, or she puts it as she didn't have any hang-ups about her wall decor or anything like that. She was just simply trying to put it into words that people could understand, that this type of giving up things that stimulate your mind and support you, like relationships with people and actually just doing things, isn't a good way to treat depression, anxiety, which back then they called it something different, but her intentions were to open people's eyes to this, and she actually succeeded in getting some doctors to understand that they shouldn't treat their patients this way. She was she found out after she wrote the story that a family that read her story was following that treatment plan for their wife and mother, and they once they read the story, they immediately stopped that type of treatment and allowed her to come back out into the world, and she ended up recovering from her depression. So the author did a really good job of bringing awareness to something that needed awareness brought to it. From my standpoint, I really appreciated this book. I have fought with depression after I had I think I've had it for years, but we didn't really understand what it was until after I had my son, and it got really bad. And I still have depression. I still am trying to find a good treatment for depression. And if I were to be completely honest, when I'm in the midst of the hard stuff, my reflex is to give up everything, to stop creating, to stop socializing. Basically, all I want to do is be in bed and do nothing. And I think anybody that knows much about depression understands that that is part of it. But the one thing that I feel like has kept me going is I have always prayed that God would give me the strength to just push through a little bit. And I'm not gonna lie, there's days where I haven't done things and sat around and done nothing, and those days happen. But I find that if I push myself through, and now I'm not saying this is the only treatment for depression, because I do have medications and all of those things, but what I am saying is that creativity and socialization really do help me. When I am having a really rough time, getting together with my friends, even if I don't feel like being with my friends, just making a time where they either come over or we meet at the park or something like that, and just being in their presence. Going to church, even though I completely and totally don't feel like it sometimes, going to church helps me, and I feel better at the end of that. And then also just like being creative, so like making these videos and reading books. That's my hobby, but I love to create things along with those books. So like I have a reading journal, and all of those things are very, very helpful and therapeutic for me. And if I were to give them up completely, I know that I would be worse off. And so reading this story really helped me, or I really appreciated reading this story, because it was very informative, I think, for people that might not understand depression. And I felt like the author advocated for people that have this type of condition very well. And so, by far, one of my favorites. I love it when a story touches my heart personally and helps me wrap my brain around something that I'm going through. And it was just a really great read. So if you've never read The Yellow Wallpaper, definitely do it. It's a little creepy, I'm not gonna lie. Towards the end it gets kind of creepy, but it is a gothic horror, so you have to remember that. But it's not, I don't think it's too bad. But yeah, so read that one because it's amazing. It is now the end of week 2 for our short story readathon. So I thought I would just wrap up what I did this week, and then yeah. So I think I have only not recorded 2, and that is The Happy Prince and The Importance of Being Earnest. If I, through all of my reading stuff, if I find one that I missed, I'll just tack it on to next week's vlog. Okay, so I read The Happy Prince this week, and this is by Oscar Wilde, which he is actually slowly becoming one of my favorite authors. Maybe not slowly, quickly, because literally this month is the first time I've read any of his works, and I am loving them. So The Happy Prince is about a statue that is in the middle of town, and when he was alive, he was a prince that was doted on, and everybody loved him, and he was happy, but he was sheltered from the world. So when they built his statue, he was able to see all the pain and things going around or going on in his city, and so he wasn't very happy. So this story is about a bird who comes to the Happy Prince and talks to him and wonders why he's sad if he's the Happy Prince. And the Happy Prince tells him what's going on and asks for help. I believe I gave this 5 stars. I can't remember. I'm absolutely loving his writing because of his prose is just fantastic. I love the way he puts words together and just makes you think. So the next one I read is actually also by Oscar Wilde, which I didn't realize until I started reading it. I actually had it on my list of things to read because it's a play, and I was pleasantly pleased to find out that it was by Oscar Wilde because I knew I was going to love it. So the play that I read is The Importance of Being Earnest. Now, this is a very funny play. Okay, so this man and his friend start out the play by having a conversation, and his friend is saying, listen, you don't have me fooled. I know that you're Jack in the country and you're Ernest in the city. What's the deal? And so his friend comes clean and tells him that he's actually Jack and he lives in the country, but he has created this persona that is his brother Ernest. And when he's in the city, he's Ernest, and it's basically a way for him to be a different person. The problem is he falls in love and things ensue. So I don't want to say much more because it's so funny and you really need to read it. But by far, one of my favorite things that I've read so far this year. It's funny, well written. Now, I've seen the movie, so I kind of knew the storyline already. But I think going into it, not knowing anything about the story, I think you'll really enjoy it. So that was week 2 of the short stories readathon. What are you reading? Have you read any new authors to you like I have? Oscar Wilde. I think I said at the beginning of this readathon that this is a great way to find new authors because you get a little taste of their writing without having to commit to something that's large and intimidating. And so especially for like classic authors, I feel like this is a really good way for you to know whether you like them or not. Another example is that I have only read short stories by L.M. Montgomery, but she's one of my favorite authors. I've never dove into Anne of Green Gables or any of the other ones, although I do have plans to do that at some point in the future. But she's still one of my favorite authors because I have read tons of her short stories and I've loved them all. So it's a great way to find authors, a great way to test out, especially classic authors, to see if that's something that you'll like. And yeah, so let me know if you have ever found one of your favorite authors by reading short stories. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.